Welcome to this explainer. Grab those aprons because today we're putting on our pro chef hats to uncover some incredible insider cooking secrets together. We're going to demystify one of the most beloved, yet honestly kind of intimidating dishes for the beginner home cook, lasagna. We'll be comparing traditional Italian classics with some incredibly creative variations to discover exactly how the pros build flavors.
Okay, let's dive into this. You know, a lot of people think making a great lasagna means you have to be totally chained to a complicated recipe, but honestly, a perfect lasagna isn't about following a strict recipe at all. It's about mastering the layers. Once you realize that lasagna is simply a master formula, a combination of fillings, sauces, and creamy cheeses layered between structural components, you suddenly gain the freedom to create pretty much anything.
To get you cooking like a true master, here's our curriculum for today. First, fillings, meat versus veggies. Second, sauces, building deep flavors. Third, cheeses, the creamy binders. Fourth, assembly, layering like a pro. And finally, number 5, pantry staples and variations. Let's get into it.
Starting with Section 1, Fillings, Meat versus Veggies.
Now, if you're going the traditional route, meat is your anchor, right? But here's a massive insider secret. You aren't just cooking the meat to get it brown. You are building a deep, robust flavor profile right from the starting line. Take the Greek lasagna, pasticcio, for example. You don't just brown the chopped meat. You cook a pound of it with a half stick of butter and 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. That tomato paste literally caramelizes in the pan, creating this incredible depth of flavor. Or consider Patsy's true Italian recipe, where you brown a pound of ground beef over sautéed onions and garlic. These proper browning techniques are absolutely crucial. That's exactly how you create that deep, savory backbone that meat-based lasagnas are so famous for.
And this brilliantly illustrates the total contrast when we switch over to seasonal vegetables. Listen, you simply cannot treat veggies like meat. Veggies are packed with water, so moisture control is literally everything here. For a seasonal squash lasagna, check this out. You take 1 large patty pan squash, slice it 1/4 inch thick, salt it, and then let it sit for a full hour just to draw out that water. On the flip side, for a vegetarian broccoli lasagna, you take 10 ounces of frozen broccoli, chop it, and parboil it first before folding it into your cheese. It's totally different prep, but these seasonal vegetable prep tips are essential to ensure your final dish doesn't turn into a watery mess.
Moving on to Section 2, Sauces, Building Deep Flavors.
You essentially have 2 paths for your tomato base, and I'll tell you, they yield completely different results that totally change the overall flavor of your dish. First, we have the slow-developed flavor method, like the one used in Patsy's recipe. You start by sautéing a cup of chopped onion and a clove of garlic in olive oil for about 5 minutes. Then you add your canned tomatoes, paste, water, and herbs, and let the whole thing simmer for 45 minutes. This creates a deeply rich, sweet, and complex profile. On the other hand, the vegetarian recipe uses a direct simmer method. You're just throwing your canned tomatoes, celery, bell pepper, and tomato sauce into the pot all at once, bringing it to a boil and simmering for 20 to 25 minutes. This quicker method gives you a much brighter, fresher, more acidic punch that pairs beautifully with earthy vegetables.
Section 3, Cheeses, the creamy binders.
All right, first up is the absolute, undisputed classic, ricotta. Ricotta is what gives you that fluffy, cloud-like texture we all know and love. In both the Olive Garden 5 cheese and the vegetarian lasagna recipes, the ricotta is blended with beaten eggs. Why? Because the egg acts as a setting agent. So when it hits the oven, the ricotta puffs up and binds the layers together perfectly, instead of just melting away into a sad little puddle.
Now what's really interesting is this highly unique cheese choice for the Greek pasticcio, feta. Obviously, feta is crumbly and super salty, which brings this sharp, tangy flavor profile that completely and drastically alters the dish from its Italian cousins. And guys, listen to this measurement, 3 3/4 pounds of crumbled feta. I mean, that's wild. But when you combine all of that with beaten eggs, it creates this dense, sturdy, intensely flavorful binding layer that actually stands up to that rich, buttery meat we talked about earlier.
And then we have cottage cheese. Now this might actually surprise some beginner home cooks, but cottage cheese is a fantastic, slightly lower fat alternative to ricotta. Used in Patsy's true Italian and the patty pan squash recipes, it functions pretty much identically on a structural level, especially when you blend it with an egg, but it brings a slightly different hydration level that works incredibly well in vegetable-heavy bakes.
Now think about how the actual volume of cheese you use totally dictates the weight and richness of your dish. Just look at the breakdown for the Olive Garden 5 cheese recipe. It calls for 3.5 cups of ricotta, a massive 4 cups of mozzarella, and a cup of Parmesan. That is a heavy, robust, true restaurant-style indulgence. Now compare that to the much more minimalist patty pan recipe.
That one uses just 1 cup of 2% cottage cheese, 4 ounces of mozzarella, and 4 ounces of Parmesan. It's a way lighter, much more delicate approach that really lets that seasonal squash shine through.
Okay, Section 4. Assembly, layering like a pro. So, the absolutely crucial point here is exactly how to handle those vegetables so your lasagna doesn't literally turn into soup. Let's walk through it step by step. Step 1. Prep them evenly. Slice your squash exactly 1/4 inch thick or chop your broccoli into uniform bite-sized pieces. Step 2. You absolutely must extract the water. Parboil that broccoli or heavily salt the squash. Step 3. If you're salting, let it sit there for a full hour. Do not rush this. And step 4. Drain completely. As a chef, I cannot stress this enough. Draining your vegetables is the ultimate insider secret to preventing those watery, soggy layers in your final dish.
And finally, Section 5, Pantry Staples and Variations.
Consider these brilliant creative vegetarian modifications. You really don't need a trip to a fancy specialty store for this stuff. You can just substitute ground meat with 10 ounces of frozen, chopped, and drained broccoli. Or, hey, want to cut the carbs? Swap out the pasta noodles entirely for that 1/4 inch scallop-sliced patty pan squash. Or, for a totally wild and unique take, check out the potato and cheese recipe. You're layering thinly sliced sweet potatoes, Idaho baking potatoes, and red skin potatoes with 2 cups of olive oil, garlic, and cheddar cheese. It's crazy, but you are still building structured layers, just using totally different pantry staples.
So, you are officially armed with the insider secrets of the pros. You understand how proper browning creates depth, how to extract moisture from your veggies, how your sauce method changes the acidity, and you know the unique binding roles of ricotta, feta, and cottage cheese. Now that you know the master formula of fillings, sauces, and cheeses, what secret ingredient will you build into your next lasagna layer? Don't be afraid to experiment, have some fun in the kitchen, and master those layers. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.